I watched Trump's speech today at the AI Summit, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. The craziest thing he said was only due to the fact that he was speaking at an AI summit, but he said that he does not know or understand why AI needs so much energy. Let's get into it. He spoke for about an hour and he mentioned Biden 10 times and Obama once, so he's switching who he cares more about from yesterday. It's not nearly as many as he has done in the past, but it's still a lot, especially when you consider that someone like Obama hasn't been president since 2017. So he starts off by talking about his trade deals and saying we signed one with Japan and that apparently the trade deal with Japan comes with a $550 billion signing bonus, but that we apparently only have 90% of that, but that it's still the majority. I don't know what he was trying to say when he was talking about that. And then he said that Japan's markets are open to the US for the first time ever. Don't know what that means at all. He says we can't negotiate with every country because there's more than 200 of them, a claim that he says most people don't know, and then says that we're just going to put a blanket 15 to 50% tariff on all the countries, I guess, that he doesn't feel like calling or don't call him. And then he claims again that the EU markets are closed to the US, and if they're willing to open them up, he'll lower the tariffs on the EU. Like literally, there are American companies all over Europe, but whatever. He says we're almost done with the deal with China, but in the past week, I've heard him say multiple times that we already have a deal with China. He's claimed that that deal has been made for months now, but we're getting close. He says this is the greatest opening 6 months for any president ever, but that he doesn't actually know if it's 6 months, but he's just going to say that it's 6 months. Don't forget when he uses the word energy, he just means gas, like oil and gas. That's all he's talking about. But he says we have more energy than anyone else in the world, but nobody knew that until he went into office. I guess no one knew it during his last 4 years. Because he's just talking about gas, you should know that we are 9th in the world in terms of oil reserves, and Venezuela is number 1. He says Alaska is close to Asia, but many people don't know that, but it's not the closest, but it is very close. I guess he thinks in his head that maybe somehow like Hawaii is closer to Asia, but actually it's not because the Bering Strait and all that. I mean, simple geography, but I don't expect him to know any of that. He says we'll have fast and safe permitting. I don't know how you do both of those concurrently, but that's what he says. And then he says that a bunch of auto plants are gonna start coming into the US, even though over the past couple months he's claimed that they've already started building a bunch of auto plants. Which one is it, dude? He says Ted Cruz works good. He works good. He said he's never heard of Nvidia, but that he wanted to break them up because they had 100% market share, and then immediately mentions AMD right after that. And then he thanks Palantir, who he says he likes very much. If you don't know, Palantir is led by Peter Thiel, a man who stumbled on a question about whether he wants humanity to endure. He says he doesn't like the term AI because he doesn't like anything artificial, as he drinks Diet Coke and eats McDonald's, but nothing artificial for this man. I'm gonna need someone to tell me what this means, but he says our children will not live in a planet controlled by the algorithm, with no explanation. He says we need common sense intellectual property rules, but then says that if you have to pay for books and articles, that AI just doesn't work. And then he calls AI a vast intelligence machine and makes again clear that you shouldn't have to pay for anything that you put into AI. It should just be openly free. Common sense. He says we need a single federal standard for all states regarding AI, and that states can't be regulating on their own because then some of them are going to hold them back. So you don't need a common standard for all education in this country, but for AI, you need a common federal standard. Got it. He says he got rid of all California emission standards somehow, and then says that cars were worse when they had higher emission standards. Just no explanation, just worse. He compares AI to the space age and then randomly says that he's been a victim of regulation in the past, but sometimes that's worked out really well, referencing some regulation that hadn't gone through regarding a building that he had when the financial crisis of 2007-2008 happened, and then is just like bragging about how he didn't lose as much money as he could have potentially lost on that. He says he terminated the Green New Scam and that was probably the third worst scandal in the entire United States history, and then he says that the worst scandal was Russia. Later in this speech, he's going to bring up the auto pen and say that was the worst scandal. So he doesn't even know which of the scandals that he's been involved in or just made up is worse. Can't figure it out. He bitches about Obama playing golf in Hawaii, but he's been in the office for 184 days and has spent 38 of them golfing. That's 20% of his presidency. 1/5 of his presidency he spent golfing, and he's bitching about Obama, for some reason, playing golf in Hawaii. He says the 11888 number again, and then we want to do some math here. He says that hundreds of thousands of people were coming in per week under Joe Biden. So if it's hundreds of thousands, I'm going to say the smallest that number could be was 200,000. If it's 200,000 for 52 weeks for 4 years, that's 41 million people that have apparently come into the country since Joe Biden took office. Even though he says 21 and 25 all the time. And yesterday made a claim for 376, but apparently it's 41 today. Because the man loves free speech, he says that you're no longer allowed to say the word coal without saying clean, beautiful coal before that. He's claiming he brought $17 trillion into this country in just a couple of months. I will remind you the operating budget of the United States government is about $5 trillion a year. So he's pretty much got his entire presidency covered. We shouldn't have to pay any taxes at all. He says Susie Wiles is the most powerful woman in the world, and then says she might in fact be the most powerful person in the world. And then he goes on to say that everyone in the Middle East and all 30 NATO leaders said that our country was dead 1 year ago. And you guessed it, it's the hottest country in the world today. He said we're going to get rid of all woke because they were being forced. These AI companies were being forced to hire woke people because Joe Biden said that they had to hire woke people, and says that woke is uncool, and then says that CRT is ridiculous. He says Americans don't want woke Marxist people in AI and we need to reject Marxist poison, and then says that Mamdani is a communist, just for no reason. He spent like 5 minutes. I'm going to remind you because we're getting to the end here. He's talking at an AI summit. He spent like 5 minutes talking about men and women's sports, and then of course brings up this long distance race that to the best of my knowledge was just an open race that anyone could compete in, and how the trans person won by 5 hours, and then brings up a weightlifting record, just random things. He's at an AI conference. He says that Biden wanted to censor and weaponize AI. I will remind you that 2 days ago he posted a AI generated video of Barack Obama getting arrested by the FBI in the White House. And finally, he says that America invented everything, literally everything. And then he says that we were the first to plant our flag in the moon, even though we're the only ones. And if you had just said that, it would have sounded better. All right, so I know this one wasn't nearly as crazy as yesterday. It was just dumb, and I had way more notes that I just kind of skipped over because I was like, he's getting lost in his thoughts again and just saying dumb stuff. He kind of stuck to his speech here and then only trailed off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't anywhere near as crazy, but still pretty crazy. Anyways, thanks for hanging out.